I'm interested in talking to people who have ideas about how we can get spending under control, because we have a spending problem, not a revenue problem.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you have a spending problem and a revenue problem.
Well, it all depends on how you describe the revenue challenges, but the spending challenges are very significant. I mean, we've got 26% or thereabouts of GDP of government expenditure. Now, that is at the level of what we were at in the GFC. Now, that is not a sustainable position for us to be in.
Now, a couple of things there, Laura. One, we're dealing with facts now. He did concede that spending is at GFC levels. But the other is Lee Sales right when she said it's both a spending and a revenue problem?
Well, it is a spending and a revenue problem. Spending is a particular problem for the new Treasurer because, of course, the government has already booked a whole heap of savings which aren't going to eventuate. And revenue, I think Ken Henry, the former Treasury Secretary, painted it quite well on 7:30 during the week, where he was saying, well, if you started from 2002 where both spending and revenue were 25% of GDP, spending's gone up to 26 and a bit, but revenue's gone down to 23.5. So that gives you an idea of the relative things. The question is, how do you then address that revenue problem? Are you going to say we actually have to lift revenue as well, or are you going to say we can keep revenue where it is and something spending? Now, I think Scott Morrison's initial position is to say, well, spending's a problem and we'll get revenue up just because the economy is
just
going
boost
on.
economic growth, and that boosts revenue.
Essentially, that's sort of saying that boosts the dollars, but he's saying we'll keep taxes where they are.
But that's sort of a theoretical approach, isn't it? It won't necessarily happen.
Well, it won't necessarily happen because until he can give us the magic formula for how you cut spending significantly, which we hope he can find some sustainable way of doing that, you're still going to have the whole, and there are problems in the revenue base which have to be addressed.
And his big message there in terms of the retail politics was, I just don't want to talk about taxation, I want to talk about what matters to families. Well, as the Abbott government found out in its first budget, services matter to families, hospitals, schools, and payments matter to families. So there is another constraint and another deeply important thing to Australian families which comes into play whenever governments try to cut spending, and he's got to find a way around that. And he's been struggling in the Senate now for some time to find a way to cut family tax benefit in a way that the Council of Social Services said was okay. He had buy-in from the Council of Social Services, and he still couldn't get that through the Senate. So I think it's quite a tough task he's got in front of him.
It's interesting they're talking about reviewing the entire Medicare schedule and looking at every single item to see if there's over-servicing, to see if they can save money there. But that potentially opens up another problem for them, in that people are going to start to raise the issue of what doctors actually get paid for each of those items, and the fact that there's a huge gap between what they charge the patient and what they get paid. So it could end up costing them more, not less.